Hey friends, I'm gonna tell you a little story. A few days ago, I was driving to work, and I have about a 30 to 40 minute commute to my day job, which A, gives me the perfect amount of time to get into the right headspace to do my obnoxiously stressful job, and B, gives me plenty of time to think and contemplate what I've got going on in my life. I found myself thinking about YouTube and what video I want to tackle next, and I had a really ambitious idea. I decided that I want to review an entire series from start to finish, episode by episode. Kind of similar to the style of my SpongeBob review, but instead of one long video tackling like 10 episodes in one go, I'm planning on approaching each video episode by episode. I took a lot of time to think about this idea. Mainly, the thing I was stuck up on was which show do I want to cover? I had to be strategic about it. It had to be a show that I feel like I can handle making videos about probably once a week for an extended period of time, and a show that I don't plan on covering in another series later on. I found myself in a position where I just couldn't make up my mind, and I was contemplating multiple shows, but then I finally figured it out. I found the perfect show. It's a show that I've really wanted to watch from start to finish on my own personal time, but I just figured, why not? Let's watch it together on our nostalgic walk down memory lane. In my opinion, it's the perfect show for this kind of series, and it's one that I definitely feel like I'm going to enjoy talking about every week or two for the next probably year and a half. It's a show with amazing characters, humor, and cultural references. It's a show that wasn't afraid to tackle topics that many other children's shows shied away from, such as war, genocide, imperialism, totalitarianism, and indoctrination. It's a show that several critics have regarded as one of the greatest animated series of all time. We're going to be dissecting none other than Avatar The Last Airbender.
Water. Earth. Fire. Air. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days, when the Avatar kept balance between the Water Tribes, Earth Kingdom, Fire Nation, and Air Nomads. But that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar mastered all four elements. Only he could stop the ruthless firebenders. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years have passed, and the Fire Nation is nearing victory in the war. 2 years ago, my father and the men of my tribe journeyed to the Earth Kingdom to help fight against the Fire Nation, leaving me and my brother to look after our tribe. Some people believe that the Avatar was never reborn into the Air Nomads, and that the cycle is broken. But I haven't lost hope. I still believe that somehow, the Avatar will return to save the world.
The first episode is titled The Boy in the Iceberg. The episode begins in a desolate, frozen landscape with a small boat traversing partially frozen waters.
It's not getting away from me this time. Watch and learn, Katara. This is how you catch a fish.
Look!
Shh, Katara, you're gonna scare it away.
Hey!
Ah! Why is it that every time you play with magic water, I get soaked?
Katara explains that it's not magic water, it's water bending, and it's an ancient art for their people. We learn that Sokka, Katara's brother, sees it as weird and that he doesn't have any bending abilities of his own. He claims that if he did, he would keep them to himself. Their canoe hits a rapid riptide and it starts speeding towards icebergs. Their boat gets destroyed between two icebergs, and they end up stuck on an iceberg in the middle of nowhere.
I knew I should have left you home. Leave it to a girl to screw things up.
You are the most sexist, immature, nut-brained... I'm embarrassed to be related to you! Ever since Mom died, I've been doing all the work around camp while you've been off playing soldier!
Katara?
I even wash all the clothes! Have you ever smelled your dirty socks?
As Katara continues popping off, the water around her starts going crazy, and as a result, a massive iceberg behind her ends up breaking and sending them flying. As they lay atop the iceberg, floating in the water, a strange light appears nearby, and the water starts to bubble. Next thing you know, a massive glowing iceberg comes out of the water.
He's alive! We have to help!
Katara! Get back here! don't know what that thing is!
After a few hits, the iceberg explodes, causing a beam of light to shoot up high into the sky.
Finally. Uncle, do you realize what this means?
I won't get to finish my game.
It means my search. It's about to come to an end. That light came from an incredibly powerful source. It has to be him.
Oh, it's just the celestial lights. I don't want you to get too excited over nothing. Why don't you enjoy a cup of calming jasmine tea?
I don't need any calming tea! I need to capture the Avatar!
Back at the iceberg, we see Katara and Sokka watching the strange light as we see a glowing boy emerge. The lights fade and the boy falls. Katara holds him as he awakens.
I need to ask you something.
What?
Please, come closer.
What is it?
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
Sure. I guess.
What's going on here?
You tell us! How'd you get in the ice? And why aren't you frozen?
I'm not sure. Appa! Are you all right? Wake up, buddy. You're okay.
Sokka and Katara stand back, terrified, as Sokka asks what that thing is. The boy explains that it's Appa, his flying bison, and that his name is Aang. Katara and Sokka introduce themselves, and Aang sneezes as he launches himself a couple yards in the air.
You're an airbender.
Sure am.
Giant light beams, flying bison, airbenders. I think I got midnight sun madness. I'm going home to where stuff makes sense.
Well, if you guys are stuck, Appa and I can give you a lift.
Aang gives Sokka and Katara a ride home on Appa. As they're traveling, we cut back to Prince Zuko and his uncle as they're ominously traversing the river.
Even if you're right, and the Avatar is alive, you won't find him. Your father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all tried and failed.
Because their honor didn't hinge on the Avatar's capture. Mine does. This coward's 100 years in hiding are over.
Back over on Appa, this happens.
Hey,
Hey, what you thinking about?
I guess I was wondering, you're being an airbender and all? If you had any idea what happened to the Avatar?
No. I didn't know him. I mean, I knew people that knew him, but I didn't. Sorry.
Okay, just curious. Good night.
Sleep tight.
Aang falls asleep, and we see him wake up to find out they've encountered a nasty storm. Appa ends up getting capsized, and him and Aang end up going deep underwater. His eyes light up as he awakens underwater and starts to freeze the water around him and Appa. Then suddenly he wakes up and we realize that all of that was just a dream. He wakes up to Katara, who tells him that they're in the village now and that he should get dressed because everyone's excited to meet him. She drags him out of the tent to meet everyone.
Aang, this is the entire village. Entire village, Aang.
Why are they all looking at me like that? Did Appa sneeze on me?
Well, no one has seen an airbender in 100 years. We thought they were extinct, until my granddaughter and grandson found you.
Extinct?
Aang, this is my grandmother.
Call me Gran-Gran.
What is this, a weapon? You can't stab anything with this.
It's not for stabbing. It's for airbending. It lets me control the air currents around my glider and fly.
Aang flies high above on his air glider as everyone watches. Some of them, mainly the kids, just enamored, while the elders stand around looking none too pleased. Aang crashes into a tower that Sokka built, and Sokka ends up covered in snow.
Great. You're an airbender, Katara's a waterbender. Together you can just waste time all day long.
You're a waterbender.
Well, sort of. Not yet.
All right, no more playing. Come on, Katara, you have chores.
I told you he's the real thing, Gran. I finally found a bender to teach me.
Her grandma tells her not to put all of her hopes into this boy, but Katara says that she can sense that he is special. We then cut on over to Prince Zuko and his uncle. We see Uncle training Zuko, and at this exact moment, we learn that they are firebenders.
Enough! I've been drilling this sequence all day. Teach me the next set. I'm more than ready.
No, you are impatient. You have yet to master your basics. Drill it again!
The sages tell us that the Avatar is the last airbender. He must be over 100 years old by now. He's had a century to master the 4 elements. I'll need more than basic firebending to defeat him. You will teach me the advanced set!
Back at the village, we see Sokka attempting to train a group of young boys to be warriors. At this point, we learn that Sokka and Katara are part of the Water Tribe and that the adult men are off fighting the war. Sokka is teaching the young boys so that they can be the men of the tribe while their fathers are off fighting. All of the boys go off to take a potty break, and we see Katara approaching, asking if Sokka's seen Aang anywhere. Sokka then sees Aang with all of the kids who are supposed to be training. He gets angry, telling them that there's no time to play while they're preparing for the war.
What war? What are you talking about?
You're kidding, right?
Later on, Katara finds Aang playing with all the penguins, saying that he has a way with animals. Katara tells Aang that she'll help him catch a penguin if he agrees to help her learn waterbending.
You got a deal. Just one little problem. I'm an airbender, not a waterbender. Isn't there someone in your tribe who can teach you?
No, you're looking at the only waterbender in the whole South Pole.
This isn't right. A waterbender needs to master water. What about the North Pole? There's another water tribe up there, right? Maybe they have waterbenders who could teach you.
Katara explains that they haven't had contact with their sister tribe at the North Pole in a long time, considering that they're literally on the other side of the globe, so she isn't sure if they can teach her. Aang reminds her that he has a flying bison, and he pitches the idea that they could travel to the North Pole to find Katara a master to teach her, to which she says maybe. In the meantime, she agrees to help him catch a penguin.
Okay, listen closely, my young pupil. Catching penguins is an ancient and sacred art. Observe.
We see Aang and Katara having a blast using penguins as sleds as they glide through the tunnels of snow and ice. At the end of the ride, they come across a massive ship sticking out of the ice. Aang asks what it is, and Katara explains that it's a Fire Nation ship and a bad memory for her people. Aang goes on to approach it, but Katara says not to, considering it may be booby-trapped. Aang tells her that if she's gonna be a bender, she needs to learn how to conquer her fears. The two adventure into the ship as ominous music plays in the background.
This ship has haunted my tribe since Gran was a little girl. It was part of the Fire Nation's first attacks.
I have friends all over the world, even in the Fire Nation. I've never seen any war.
Aang, how long were you in that iceberg?
I don't know, a few days maybe?
I think it was more like 100 years.
What? That's impossible. Do I look like a 112-year-old man to you?
The war is a century old. You don't know about it because, somehow, you were in there that whole time. It's the only explanation.
Aang falls back, dumbfounded at the idea that he's been gone for the last 100 years. The two walk through the ship, and just as Katara says that they should get out of there, Aang's foot gets caught on a tripwire and he activates a booby trap. They get locked in the room that they're in, and gears start turning and steam is generated as a massive firework blows out the top of the ship and high in the air above them.
The last airbender. Quite agile for his old age. Wake my uncle! Tell him I found the Avatar. As well as his hiding place.
The episode ends there as we're left with a cliffhanger. Now, before we get into our analysis, I just want to point out two things. A, I've never watched this show from start to finish. I watched it during its original run, but never really in order. See, back when I was growing up, streaming wasn't a thing, so it was pretty hard to watch an entire series in order, so I just kind of caught random episodes as they played on Nickelodeon. And B, I'm happy that I never watched this entire series in order because that leaves me in a position where I can consume this basically as a first-time viewer and dissect what I'm seeing, but also be left with tons of questions as I don't know how the whole story plays out yet. I think that really works in my favor here, and I am so hyped about it. This episode left me with so many questions and very little answers. First of all, I'm curious as to how Aang ended up in that iceberg. Assuming that his dream was him really just recalling the past, it's safe to assume that he was traversing the ocean during the storm and he got swept away underwater. Judging by the light in his eyes and around his body, it looks like his avatar powers took over on autopilot to save him as it froze the water around him, somehow putting him into a state similar to cryogenic stasis. But it's weird because when he came out, he wasn't really frozen. It was like it froze time around him and left him perfectly preserved in the state that he was in when it happened, which is just a mind-boggling concept. I hope that we're given some more context as to what happened to leave him traversing the storm and how the sequence of him being frozen but also not frozen occurred. I'm also curious about what happened to all the other airbenders. Aang was shocked to find out that they all went extinct, and clearly that happened sometime within the last 100 years as he doesn't recall that happening. Furthermore, I'm wondering about Prince Zuko. Why is he on the hunt for the Avatar? Why is it that his entire family line has been hunting down the Avatar for the last 100 plus years? And how does he know that the Avatar is the last remaining airbender? On top of that, how does he know that Aang is the Avatar when at this point it seems like even Aang himself doesn't know that he's the Avatar? Furthermore, it's pretty incredible that Zuko just so happened to be on a ship in the area when Aang was awakened. Like, what are the odds of that? It's a massive world, and somehow when the Avatar awakens, Zuko just so happens to be not too far away? Seems like an incredible coincidence if you ask me. Lastly, I'm curious about Sokka and Katara's people. They live in a village in the South Pole. It's completely frozen. As Sokka said, they're part of the water tribe, but along the lines, we learn that Katara is literally the only waterbender in the South Pole. There's a few things to question here. Why is it that Katara is the only waterbender down there? The South Pole is a pretty big place. Are there any other villages down there that might have any waterbenders? Also, Sokka said that the adult men of the water tribe are off fighting the war, which I'd assume is a war against the Fire Nation? But like, since Katara is the only waterbender, is this war that the rest of the tribe is fighting just a bunch of able-bodied adult man warriors taking on a bunch of firebenders? If that's the case, I imagine they must be at an insanely massive disadvantage here. It's basically like taking a knife to a gunfight. I'm just imagining these warriors with staves and swords taking on a bunch of literal walking flamethrowers, and it all just sounds bad when you look at it that way. It kind of confuses me that they could be the water tribe of the South Pole, but only one of them is actually a waterbender. In time though, I'm sure it'll all make sense. Besides, that's what first episodes are for. It lays a basic understanding of everything that you're gonna need to know to digest the rest of the series, and it makes you question things and hope that by the end of the series, all of your questions will be answered. I'm really excited to see where we go from here. In this episode, we met Sokka, Katara, Aang, Appa, Katara and Sokka's grandmother, the rest of the water tribe, Prince Zuko, and his uncle, who I know from watching the show as a kid is named Uncle Iroh. I cannot wait to dive more into the story of Zuko and Iroh and unpack further as we progress more into the show. It's been a really long time, but I remember being fascinated by Zuko's past, his current developing story, and the dynamic between him and Uncle Iroh. Plus, Uncle Iroh is definitely one of my all-time favorite characters. I remember him being like sort of happy-go-lucky and go with the flow while also being stoic and very wise and knowledgeable leader. All in all, this episode was fantastic and very iconic to the series as a whole, and I am excited to see what comes next for the show. But that's gonna be it for this video. What do you think? Are you excited to check out the rest of this show with me? Did you watch it when it originally aired? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. If you enjoyed this video, leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think and maybe share it with a friend. And of course, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.